By his stripes we were healed. How strange to say the wounds, the stripes left by a whip could bring healing. Yet what God has written, he has written. Today we continue our reflection on the healing power of the Paschal mystery. Last night, at the Last Supper, we reflected on how it heals our community. That salvation is not a private thing. It is the result of being incorporated into the communion of the church, forgiving and being forgiven, washing one another's feet as he did for us. The Eucharist that ought to define our relationship with one another, opening us to the reality that God wants to heal our communion. As we'll see, this extends healing also to body and soul. The healing of our bodies is the focus of tomorrow night, but today draws us into this mystery. By his stripes, we, our souls, were healed. How can the inexcusable and horrific torment of Jesus heal our souls? By grace. We are dealing with a mystery. Some aspects of this will always lie beyond our complete comprehension. We are not, however, left without something to ponder and to understand. St. John invokes his status as an eyewitness to assure us that immediately blood and water flowed out when Jesus was pierced by the lance. The placement and flow of that blood and water is the literal physiological response to being tortured and then pierced. The factual existence of blood and water from the heart of Jesus points us to the mystical reality of baptism and the Eucharist. Baptism forgives all sins and heals our souls. The Eucharist forgives venial sin and heals our souls, granting them even greater strength than before. At the same time, Jesus' death on the cross makes suffering itself a path to healing. Anyone who has ever suffered can attest to the fact that suffering typically wounds our souls, leaving us jaded, cold, and afraid. How can suffering heal them? The mystery of the cross. To grasp this takes a lifetime. More, really. Only in eternity will we fully grasp and understand. But we do have somewhere to begin. The beginning, that is Genesis. Our bodies and souls are disordered. When Adam and Eve sinned, they damaged human nature. Our souls should be in control of our bodies and all that entails. But they usually aren't. Like training a rebellious animal, reasserting the soul's control over our bodies often entails some pain. And so it is that pain can heal us by restoring spiritual control to a disordered body. The cross of Christ, however, goes even deeper. So much of our suffering is not useful and is itself spiritual. Prior to original sin, our bodies obeyed our souls, and our souls were supposed to trust and obey God. Because Adam and Eve did not trust God, even when God only gave them good things, we find ourselves in a trust deficit. We owe God our trust. And trusting God when things are good is good. But it's too cheap to pay the trust deficit. Trusting God when we suffer, however, is a much stronger investment. It is the suffering of Jesus that pays our debt. He never doubted. He never lost trust. He never owed anything to the Father, making his act of trust in the midst of suffering infinitely valuable, able to pay the debt that our distrust has incurred. What our suffering does is train us to receive that gift from the Lord. That suffering with trust can heal us of the wounds caused by suffering without trust. It helps to think of it this way. Suffering wounds us in three ways. The pain itself, whether physical or spiritual. Then there's the existential question, the way that suffering makes us wonder, what is the point? And finally, there's the isolation. Pain has a way of making us feel alone. The greater the pain, the harder it is to see outside of ourselves. And the passion and death of Jesus Christ enters into all three of these kinds of suffering. Suffering hurts. There's no way around it. But pain has a purpose. Pain alerts us to danger. Suffering, all suffering, is a wake-up call, a forceful reminder that we're in danger. We are not meant for this world. And by choosing to suffer like us, Jesus shows us that we should see any and all suffering as a reminder that this world is broken. Suffering can heal our souls by freeing them from the lie that we can be perfectly happy in this broken world. As for that existential question, Jesus' suffering gives us an answer. If we accept suffering with faith, if we unite it to Jesus on the cross, any and all suffering can have purpose. When our souls are wounded by the fear that everything is pointless, redemptive suffering heals those souls by saying, this pain, by virtue of the cross, is now a channel of grace for me and for others. Redemptive suffering heals our souls by giving us purpose. Redemptive suffering is also the answer to the third thing, the loneliness caused by pain. Jesus is God and man. When Jesus suffered as a man, his divinity plugged in to any and all human suffering to ever exist. What that means is that those who suffer are not alone. When we turn our thoughts to Jesus' suffering, we can become aware of the fact that Jesus feels the suffering of this very moment. You are never alone in your pain. All it takes is the faith and willingness to see Jesus there, suffering whatever you suffer, right along with you. By his stripes, we were healed. By our stripes, suffering can stop being the pointless, lonely denial of happiness and become a purposeful, communal expression of hope for even greater happiness. By his stripes, our suffering can begin to heal our souls of the wounds caused by suffering without his stripes. This is the difference between suffering that wounds the soul and suffering that heals it. The same difference between theft and gift. When something is stolen from us, we are rightly grieved. When we choose to give that same thing away out of love, we are filled with joy. So much suffering in this world is unavoidable, inflicted on us unjustly. We can't stop that, and we are right to want all suffering to end. But what we can do is make the choice to accept it as it is, to respond by making the suffering that we freely give to God. The devil and the world cannot take from us what we've already given away, which is why Pontius Pilate and others are baffled when Jesus does not defend himself, does not try to escape his torment. suffering endured with a resentful rejection will wound us. Suffering embraced with faith and in union with Christ on the cross will heal us, even if that embrace is often imperfect and faltering. By his stripes, we are healed. By his stripes, even our suffering can become joy, until eventually that suffering will be no more.